Welcome along, guys. Welcome to 2019, the first video of 2019. And I thought, why not address something which people seem to be asking me all the time on Facebook, on Instagram, in the comments, and that is, should I buy a 701 or a 690, or should I buy an Enduro bike and convert it to a Supermoto? Let's get into it. Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I've had a 701. I love the 701. I had it for over a year. I think I had it for about, let me think, about 14, 15 months, something like that. I sold it to buy the Super Duke. It's the only reason I sold it. When I wanted another Supermoto, when I realised I was missing out on that Supermoto fun, I thought, shall I buy another 701? I probably would have, but because I'd had one, I'd been there, I'd done that, I thought, let's go for the converted Enduro route. Let's go for the ultimate Supermoto. This is more fun than the 701 or 690. You know, this is a competition bike converted to Supermoto. It weighs about 105 kilos compared to the 145 of the 701, so it's going to be more fun. Let's not beat about the bush. But there are some disadvantages to having a converted Enduro, and if it's your only bike, if it's just the only bike you're buying, you haven't got multiple bikes in the garage, you're not like me, you know, a jammy bugger with a choice of motorcycles, then I would say, stay there Mr. Tractor, then I would say the 701 is your best bet as your only bike. Because to be honest, you've got 6,000 mile service intervals, you've got 6,000 mile valve checks, you've got an engine which the maintenance is measured in miles, not in hours. So unless it's something which is just for weekend blasting, short trips, just absolute hooning, then I really think you're better off with the 701 or the 690. Where this comes into its own is because it's lighter. I've now got we'll do a little walk around of this in a minute, but this has now got actually, let's do the walk around now and just tell you what bike I've got. So this is a 2017 500 EXC, more or less standard, but it's got the FMF pipe on it, SM Pro wheels, Motomaster brake setup. It's the absolute bollocks, basically. I absolutely love the thing. Now, the biggest drawback with the Enduro bikes is their competition engines, and you have to change the oil in this every 15 hours. So every 15 hours of use, you've got a little hour counter on the dash, which you can keep track of it, but every 15 hours you have to change the oil. Every 30 hours you have to check the valve clearances, so you have to strip all the bike down, take the rocker cover off, get your feeler gauges and see if your valve tolerances are within spec. And even at 150 hours, or is it 200 hours, you're meant to strip the engine, check your piston wear, check your conrod wear, replace your main end and your small end bearings. You're actually meant to really go into the engine after sort of 200 hours and perhaps replace bearings and pistons. And so I mean, it's not for the faint-hearted, one of these. And to be honest with you, I didn't realise that part when I bought one of these, and I probably wouldn't have bothered if I knew I was going to have to strip it down and get my hands proper dirty in the engine. But this is definitely a bike you should only consider if you're pretty good with your hands, you're willing to work on your bike, because it's going to cost you a fortune if you're taking it down to the dealer to have the oil changed. Good news is it only takes 1.2 litres of oil, so it doesn't take much oil. The other bit of good news is it only carries one filter, so there's only one filter to change, and a couple of screens to clean and stuff like that. So the oil change is no biggie really. It's fairly straightforward, doesn't cost too much, it's fairly easy. It's actually easier than the 701 oil changes. But let's go back out on the road, let's make the most of this sunshine. If you're going to do a lot of road miles and you're not going to go off-road with it, is to revalve the suspension and respring the suspension, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm in discussions with K-Tech about revalving and respringing this to suit my weight a bit better, because, you know, on the tarmac this suspension is designed for off-road, so it's very soft. The biggest problem being when you brake, there's a huge amount of front end dive. These Motormaster brakes are fantastic, but it's just so much dive because of the soft suspension that you're limited to how much braking you can actually do. So I definitely want to get the fronts resprung, revalved, just so they don't flow as much oil so quickly, just to slow that dive down. And the rear is a bit soft for me as well, so I'll probably get the rear revalved and also resprung, just to get it absolutely spot on. Cheers, buddy. But these things are a beast of a bike. The 701 is still a beast of a bike. I think if you were to put a power commander, perhaps a Rottweiler airbox on the 701, I think performance wise it would be very close to this. It'd only be a bit heavier, so it'd only be the little weight differences which will make it not quite as good. I'd say if you did all that to your 701, which is similar to what mine had, admittedly I didn't have the Rottweiler kit, but I had a power commander and this K&N filter in it. I can't see that sun. Performance is very similar. You know, it'll come up in third gear still, even on the 701 onto the power, but not quite as light as this, so it won't really quite as easy as this, because this is lighter. And we all know what lightness means. Lightness equals fun. Oh, I love it. I love this thing. Let's check that copper's not behind me. I've just checked the valves and serviced this bike, and actually the valves were quite a lot out of adjustment. When I did a bit of research before buying one of these, everyone said, oh no, the valves, they never go out of adjustment. Well, mine were quite a lot out of adjustment. The inlet valve was, I think it's meant to be between 10 and 17, no, 0.17 of a millimetre, and mine were at 0.23 of a millimetre. So they were quite a lot over the spec, and the the exhaust was exactly on the highest measurement. I think it was on 0.16 of a mil, and that's the uppermost of the measurement. So I've actually just re-shimmed all of this, and it isn't too bad a job if you take your time. I actually did a video of it, I've recorded a bit of it, but probably not going to share it. But it's easy to get to the rocker. The rocker comes off. All of these engines, including the 701, it's all a simple rocker design, so you don't have to, if you have to change shims, you haven't got to go under valve caps and take your camshafts out. It's all on a rocker, so it is quite easy to actually re-shim, and I did it in a couple of hours. Really take your time, but it's definitely doable with a home mechanic to actually re-shim it. So the 701 690 is a great bike, fantastic bike. So I'm going to get my hands on the new KTM 690 in the spring when KTM have got them in. I'm going to buy one of those for a couple of weeks, so I'll let you know what that's like. But it looks like it's very similar to the 701, to be honest, but I'm still going to try one. Hopefully I won't be swapping this in for one. There's KTM and offer me a deal. I'm all ears. But if your bike is for road use primarily, then 701 without question it's much more of a road bias machine. You can do distance on it, you can do miles on it, you can commute on it. It's nothing really to those things you can do on one of these, not with the maintenance intervals. I'd say these are sort of 20% more fun than a slightly tuned up 701. But you just have to decide if 20% more fun is enough to warrant all of the extra maintenance and kerfuffle you have to do. For me, it is. and frosty by the look of it. Just be a little bit careful. Oh, fuel lights on. Shit. Shitty bums. My fuel lights on. Oh no. That means I've basically got 10 miles and I need fuel. Oh, frosty! Jesus, it's frosty in there. That's how cold it is. The sun's going down, it's about 3 o'clock and there's still frost on the ground. It's not even been much above freezing today. Well, we've got to find some petrol now. I've got to run out. God, not again, please! Fuel-wise, it's a good point. These use a little bit more than a 701. A little bit, not enough to worry about though. You'd think being a competition engine it might be a lot more thirsty, but it's not. It's around about the same. There's not enough to put you off buying one because of the extra fuel it uses. The fuel light comes on and you've got to find petrol immediately. You get hardly anything. It's not so much of the fuel light as a panic light. Oh, I can visibly see it going down. Oh, we've not got much left. Oh, there's just a dribble. So yeah, this is another thing with a 500. Watch your fuel. Your tank is see-through, so there's really no excuses for running out of petrol, but once it gets to the bottom, it goes down very, very quickly because the side of the tank is very thin. So once you get down there, oh, ball bags have run out now. Oh no, right on a junction. So you get a little bit, if I've got a little bit over here, a little bit over that side, if I push the bike right over, not enough for that curb there. Oh, bloody hell, not again. That last little drop from the other side. Come on over. Come on over, join the party, yes. That should be enough. Quick, 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 quick! To the petrol station! Come on, baby. Just sip it. It's worse than a Toronto for needing fuel when the light comes on. Sainsbury's to the rescue. That were close. So there we go, fueled up, back on the road. So I hope that's been helpful to some of you if you're thinking of getting a Supermoto, because Supermotos are incredible bikes. I would never be without a Supermoto now. I'd have to always have one in the garage because they're just so much fun, and I've got a couple of mates with them as well, and if there's a couple of you with them, oh, it's absolutely epic, the fun you can have. Oh and yes, and you don't need indicators. Everyone says, oh, you've got no mirrors, you've got no indicators. You don't need them. You don't need them for legal purposes anyway. The bike is fully road legal with no indicators and no mirrors in the UK. I can't speak for other countries. So to summarise, if you want a bike to use every day and you do quite a lot of miles on it, I would honestly recommend the 701 or KTM 690 or any or DRZ 400, any of the more road focused, manufacturer-built Supermotos. If you go down the Enduro road, like this bike, yes, it's more fun. Yes, they're quick, because they're so light. But the maintenance is heavy, they are heavy. I seem to be always in the garage playing with this, doing something to it. Whether that's an oil change or checking the valves, it comes around so quickly, about 5 hours. Sorry, 15 hours, you wouldn't believe it. It feels like 5 hours. It's like 2 or 3 evenings out riding and that's it, you've got to change the oil again. If you can live with that, get one.